Are you listening? Damn. Yeah.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Damn Podcast. I'm your host, Angie Machado. Joined with me is Jake Hedberg, and I am going to type voice into the screen. The crew is here. We may get Davis. I don't know if he had class or not. But hey, guys, how's it going?
Hi, Angie. It's good.
Jake, how are you?
Fantastic.
Good?
Yeah.
Hey, spring term, off and rolling.
Yeah, it's the best term of all three.
Senior year. Jake is in the countdown. Ty, appreciate you joining us. I know you've got busy family life. And we're going to talk some spring football. We have spring game this weekend, this Saturday, noon at Reser Stadium. Jake has been at all the practices. Ty has been to a bunch of practices. We're going to preview the game in a way, but I really want to get down to the down and dirty of what we've learned so far this spring. We haven't been with you guys for a little over a month now. We had first part of spring camp, and then we had spring break, and there's a lot going on. So I thought it'd be a great time to get together. We do have the baseball game. Jake has his pulled up. Oh, Davis is here.
There we go.
Okay, look at that. The crew is here. Davis, welcome to your first Damn Podcast.
Look at him. He's copying me already.
Wait, we gotta put his. Oh, there he is. Can you hear us now, Davis? Can we hear you? I'm not hearing Davis. Okay.
It says you're on mute, Davis.
It says you're on mute. There you are. Oh my goodness, we got the crew. So, Davis, we were just previewing. We're going to talk spring camp. I know you've been at all the practices as well with Jake. For those of you that are joining us, this is formal introduction to Davis Stone. As Jake is working toward transitioning and graduating and finding a, quote, real job, we are welcoming Davis to the BeaverBlitz family, and he's doing a great job. So, Davis, welcome. I know you know Ty, but we have a lot to talk about. There's a lot going on here with football. First of all, let's hear spring break. Because, we got to ease into this. Jake, what'd you do for spring break?
Yeah, I took a little trip down to Cabo. The cruise down there was pretty good. Pretty solid trip. It was my first time south of the border, and no complaints. Got a lot of sun.
And you got out. You didn't get stuck down there.
Didn't get stuck down in Cabo.
No federales looking for
This
Jake
time.
Hedberg.
Yeah.
Davis, how about you?
I went down to Palm Springs, played a lot of golf, watched a lot of March Madness. It was good.
Okay, nice. Palm Springs is my usual go-to. It's typically where Team Machado is. This year we did something different. Ty, what about you? Do you have the kids?
My spring break was great, Angie. Yeah, I also went to Mexico. It was great. No.
You did?
No.
Nice. Oh.
I'm too old and not educated, so no, I did not.
But did you have the kids?
Yeah, I had them a little bit.
Okay.
It was fun. We went and saw some family and we did some fun. We went to the beach and stuff.
Nice. And you're
Yeah,
from the beach.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I did Vietnam, so it was a long flight, but it was super cool. And I'm just ready. I can't even tell you guys how inexpensive things were in Vietnam. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It's a really cool vacation spot. People talk about
it was very cool. I went very hesitant. Luke wasn't able to go because Luke at Grand Canyon has a different spring break, so it was just the three of us. I went a little apprehensive. It's a long flight. It was 12 hours from Seattle to Seoul, another 5 hours to Da Nang. So that was a long day. And we spent the whole time in Da Nang, but amazing trip. The people were super friendly. The food was amazing. It was great. So we are back though. And it's time to talk Oregon State spring football. And then at the end, we will get to damn questions. If you do have questions and you're watching us live, make sure to post those in the comments. Chubby Beaver already says, "What's up, everyone?" So thanks for being here. But there's a lot to talk about with Oregon State football. So in a little bit of what have we learned? I want to start with the offense. So not only has Oregon State had some changes at the player level, there's been pretty big changes with the coaching, especially on offense. a new wide receiver coach with Pat McCann, new running back coach with Ray Pickering, new offensive line coach with Mike Cavanaugh returning. And then we add in Danny Langsdorf, former OC, now working side by side with Gundy. Jake, I'll start with you. What has the offense looked different to you this thing?
Yeah, I mean, it really hasn't. If you think about it, yeah, there's been a lot of coaching changes, but if you look at the guys that really took over and took those coaching spots, I mean, if you look at Pat McCann, he was coached by Coach Fentz. You looked at Coach Cav, Coach Kyle Devan, and even, Coach Heck was helping out Coach Boyer with the tight ends last season. So really, the only position where it's a full transition is the running back position with Coach Pick, and every indication from that room has been it's been a pretty seamless adjustment. So I really don't think there's been that much change. And then again, with even the quarterbacks, Danny Langsdorf, Coach Ryan Gunderson. So it's the same mantra, it's the same stuff. Just the terminology might be a little bit different, but overall, I really don't think there's going to be too much of a change. I just think the play calling is going to be a lot more suited around the quarterback strengths of Malik Murphy, which is pushing the ball down the field. So I think we're going to see a lot more of that this upcoming season compared to last year's offense, which is more the shorter game and the a run-heavy offense.
Okay, we'll get back to talking quarterbacks in a minute, but you bring up a point. Oregon State struggled last year in the passing game. Part of that, a good part of that was quarterback play, but some of that was just the chemistry, I think, with the receivers. Davis, what are your thoughts on what you've seen from the quarterback and receiver together?
They've looked really good. I mean, after plays, I've been noticing Malik, I've seen a lot, will go up to the wide receivers and make sure they're on the same page. They talk after nearly every play, and after they're off the field and the team too is on the field, they're talking, making sure they're on the same page.
Hi, you've seen a lot. What are your thoughts on the quarterback? With Jabari and Malik.
It oftentimes you see a quarterback that seems more comfortable, and something that a lot of people really compliment Malik Murphy on is going through his progressions and looking for that design play. Now, some of that could have been circumstantial, but Giovanni McCoy never looked comfortable last year. And some of that could have been that at that point in the spring, the defensive line was getting a lot of pressure. Some of it could have been new scheme. Some of it could have been the transition from Idaho to, the new look Pac-12. But he never looked comfortable. Malik Murphy might make an error, and he may throw a pick or something might get a tipped ball, but he never really looks uncomfortable. He looks like a guy that's in control of his craft. You know what I mean? And I think it's just a matter of time that as he gets comfortable with this scheme, that it'll reflect more on the stats.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Because I haven't been back since before spring break. I was there for the first part, and the comfort level wasn't there, but obviously it was the first 2 weeks of practice. Yeah. Jake, what have you seen from Malik and Jabari?
Yeah, I mean, I think starting with Malik, I think the talent is obviously there. He's a kid who, if you watch the ball come out of his hand, it's this is a legitimate quarterback. He's an NFL type kid. The timing's been a little bit off this year, and I think that can be attributed to him, making that adjustment from changing schools for the third time in 3 years. It's tough. It's his third playbook in 3 years, and then I think with a full summer of development, he'll be able to take that next step and kind of get that timing down. And then on the flip side, Jabari Johnson's a guy who, in my opinion, has taken a huge step forward. He looks the most comfortable out of the three. He's a dynamic athlete. He can really change the game with his legs. What he's shown from that jump from year 2 to year 3 so far has been extremely promising. And I think the future is bright even after this upcoming season in 2026, where Jabari Johnson will most likely end up stepping into that starting role, because everything I've seen from him has been a plus. He's taking care of the football. He's progressing through his reads. And what we saw from him last year was he was almost hesitant. He scrambled too quickly almost. And whereas this season, we're seeing a lot more of a a more complete quarterback. And then a quick side note for fans, the Beavers just took a 1-0 lead over UCLA on a Gavin Turley single. So the Beavers are off to a hot start with 3 straight singles.
Nice. Thanks for that. Yeah, I have it up too, and I just saw that. So thanks for throwing that out there. Yes, we know there's a big Beaver baseball game, but this was the only time that really worked for all of our schedules. So we're going to make it work for everybody. David, go ahead.
It feels like I don't know how like Jake and Davis feels, but it feels like you don't see a ton of like outright misses by the quarterback. You don't see a lot of misses. You see some timing that needs to be adjusted, some comfortability needs to be adjusted, but you don't see like a ton of like misses where you're like, oh, that's a tough ball. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, last year there was. I mean, I think last year it didn't really look like there were any real power 4 capable quarterbacks. And I think this year, obviously having Halik and then the step forward that Jabari's taken, I mean, he looks like a legitimate power 4 quarterback as well. So I think Oregon State's pretty healthy in the quarterback room. And I think they're going to find ways to get Jabari Johnson the football, not necessarily in a quarterback role or like a pure pocket passer quarterback role, but kind of in that wildcat type spot we saw him in the Washington State game, because he's a dynamic athlete, and the way he's been throwing the ball too, it's going to be tough to keep him off the field.
I think he could be a really intriguing weapon on third downs too.
Yeah. And Davis is nodding his head, and so if you're listening on the podcast, Davis, I mean, Jabari, I know this is new for you. You haven't seen spring camp before, but what are your thoughts on Jabari Johnson?
As of now, I think he's been playing as the best quarterback we have, just as Malik transitions. Great scrambler, like definitely. And I think he's also developing a really good deep ball, and he's been showing that off recently.
Yeah. You bring up a point though, Jake, in the fact that this is Jabari's second year in the system. And this is what gets me every time when we start seeing all these players and across the country jumping in the portal. And it's not just quarterback. I think it really affects the quarterback in some degree, but it's kind of across the board. It's so hard to learn a new playbook and a new system and new personnel with every stop. And, Malik, yes, it happens in the NFL, but they're typically not jumping year after year after year. There is a really good podcast out there. If you listen to Yogi Roth, he sat down with Malik Murphy last week, and it was, if you have time, go check it out. It's Yogi Roth's podcast he does. It's on YouTube, but he sits down with Malik. He has a history with Malik in the Elite 11 when Malik was a high school student. Super good interview, and it really shows some personality of Malik Murphy. So we'll hope to get Malik on at some point in this podcast, maybe this summer, August camp. But it really struck me as a good interview. This is a kid who is polished in the same vein as a DJ, Uyangalele. He's been through all the media training and such, but very comfortable with speaking to the media, and talked about his journey back to Oregon State, or back to the West Coast. So, okay, we talked some about quarterback, and then the quarterbacks to the wide receivers. Jake, does this wide receiver room take a step forward, even with the departure of Kafense?
Yeah, I mean, I think they 100% do. I mean, I think what we saw from this group last season was an inexperienced group that didn't really have a whole lot of depth. Whereas now, on the flip side, they're experienced, and in my opinion, I would say they're legitimately 3 deep at each of the 3 spots. At the outside spots, especially, there's a plethora of talent. I mean, there's guys who are getting run with the 3s who are pretty talented kids. I think you have a pretty clear top guy in Trent Walker, and then you got that next tier of guy, which Darius Clemens and Taz Reddix, who I think is in for a big year.
Yeah.
For fans who haven't really been following too closely, he's shifted to the slot spot where he's fighting with Jeremiah.
Jake, you called that last season.
I did call that. I mean, because in my mind, Oregon State's top 3 guys are Taz, Clemens, and Trent. Yeah. And you need to find ways to get all 3 of those guys on the field at the same time. And Taz is a dynamic athlete. He's been jumping off the field. We kind of saw like a hint of what Taz could do last season. And I think he's a guy who I think he could push to be Oregon State's number 2 target this upcoming season. And even beyond that, I mean, David Wells and Zach Card have shown the ability as more deep threat guys. They're younger. They still need to polish their out trees some more. But what they've shown on the deep balls gives Oregon State's two pretty legitimate threats down the field. And then having Jalen Holmes, the guy who's impressed with his shiftiness after the catch, and then a guy who I think might not see as much time this year, but has a really bright future is Malachi Durant.
Yeah,
he's kind of been slowly working his way up the depth chart, and he's a talented kid. So overall, I think the passing game as a whole is going to see a lot more action this upcoming season, and there's a handful of guys that are going to really benefit from that.
You guys, Ty or Davis, you guys have anything to add there?
Real quick, there's an article that's just to go back a little bit that Steve Sarkisian spoke on Malik, and I'll try and post it to the lodge. I don't want to waste podcast time with it, but it's very complimentary to him, and basically Coach Sarkisian was like, we're gonna miss him. We miss him, Yeah. I as a fan, Jake and I have talked to about like there were some pretty quality receivers at Duke that Malik had. And this is like, who cares about Duke's receivers? A part of that was like, I was impressed with what they could do both in getting open and after the catch. But like, I agree with Jake. I think that Taz has played himself in a position to really get a lot more touches and a lot more dynamic plays after the touch. And as a fan, I'm so excited to watch that Trent Walker Malik connection. Like it feels like I've always been a big fan of Trent. I remember watching one of my first springs working with Blitz and standing next to Jake on the sidelines and watching a 50-50 ball and Trent Walker just effort swallow it up. And it was just one of those things where you like just watched a really competitive guy and you're like, oh my gosh, this guy's going to get – at that point in time, it was prior to 900 yards. We didn't know who he was going to be, Yeah, I'm really excited about that. And, that like Jake said, that whole room, it's in the practice report today. Durant shook up a really athletic Sullivan, like Aiden Sullivan. Like that's an athletic linebacker and just shook him up bad.
Well, and I'm going to go back to, as Davis mentioned, and I've noticed this too, especially with Trent Walker and Malik Murphy, just the constant communication, like after a play, whether he caught it or not, they're constantly, then, Trent, they usually meet each other halfway and they're talking about, what Malik saw, what Trent did, what Trent saw, all that adds up. When you have a whole bunch of coaches like that can help coach each other, it's going to help in the long run. Mm-hmm. And you make a good point, Ty, because the practice reports that you guys are putting out are better than anything I've seen in years. And no disrespect to other Blitz writers, because they're all been fantastic, but the level of detail is about as tightrope of a line as we can go without, having coaches give us double looks and telling us to take some stuff down. So much good information, you guys. So kudos to you. And if you're not in the lodge, you got to get there, because I'm telling you, it'll make you a smarter football fan. It'll make you a smarter Beaver fan. So definitely check those lodge reports out. Okay, so 1-0 right now. Yeah, Oregon State has 3 hits.
1-0, bottom one.
Yep, bottom one. So, okay, so the other area is going along with this is tight end. And I want to get your thoughts, because I've heard some amazing things about the tight ends, especially as receivers. Last year, it seemed that the tight ends were a little quiet. What are your thoughts on this tight end group?
Yeah, I think what Coach Heck has done through the first 4 weeks of practice has been pretty impressive. This is a group that lost their top guy last year. Then they saw another starter in Indy Alfieri jump to the defensive side of the ball. So really, outside of Caulfield, there wasn't a whole lot of proven commodities. And I think going out and getting Riley and Jackson Bowers in the transfer portal was a huge first step. And then seeing that translate onto the field has been pretty solid as well. I think it's pretty clear that Bryce Caulfield's that number one guy, but between Cooper Jensen and Riley Williams, I'd say the Beavers have 3 pretty solid tight ends.
Yep.
I think they're going to be utilized a lot more. I know Coach Heck's pretty high on really all 5 of those guys that are practicing right now. I think it's a pretty deep room, and I think Oregon State's comfortable putting any of those guys out there. So I'd expect to see.
Do you see them actually making catches?
Yeah, okay. I do. I think Riley Williams has shown strong hands. Caulfield had one bad drop today, but outside of that, he's been pretty solid catching the football. Jackson Bowers has had a few drops, but overall, it's been what looks like improved group. Obviously, it's tough to tell in practice, and there's no real way of knowing until the season actually starts. But from what we've seen, they look improved.
I don't know about you, Ty, Davis. Maybe you guys can weigh in too. I think we see a lot of double tight sets this year with the Beavs.
I've actually seen less of that in practice.
Okay.
I haven't seen a ton.
Okay.
I don't know if they're saving that, or what I honestly think it is just how much improved Oregon State's receiver room is.
Receivers, okay.
It's like they want to get Taz on the field.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, you're going to see 2 tight end sets. I'm sure you'll see a decent amount of it this season, but I wouldn't really expect any more than last season or any less. I expect about the same.
They've moved the tight end around, like they've flexed and they've motioned a little bit.
They put it in the backfield a little
bit too. For people concerned about Riley Williams' weight, because on paper he looks like a light O tackle.
Yeah.
But he carries his weight.
What is he, 270 or something? Is that what he's listed at? What was that, Drake?
Yeah, he's like a light O tackle. He's like a freshman O tackle. But I mean, he runs.
But he doesn't look like he does not look like an offensive tackle.
He looks big, but not bad big, and he runs well.
Yeah, he does move well. He carries it well. Okay, so let's talk about that. Should Oregon State, flex a tight end back to like an H back or a full back? That running back room has been it's pretty thin right now. What are your thoughts? I mean, you have Anthony Hankerson obviously is your number one. You have Salah Hadeen Allah, and then Cornell Hatcher. Have you guys been seeing more Cornell the past couple days, couple weeks?
Yeah, I mean, he's probably in the live scrimmage sense, he's taken on the heaviest role just due to Oregon State's got a pretty clear top 2 with Salah and Hank, but we've also seen since spring break, we've seen Montrell Hatton shift over to that running back spot as well. And that's a guy who was a little big for a receiver at 5'11", 215. So I think the running back room might fit him a little bit better. And he's been impressive, He's shown the ability to catch the ball in the backfield, which obviously translates from his history playing receiver. But he's shown a shiftiness, and his, watched him go through drills today. His feet look pretty solid. So that's another guy who could potentially contribute to that room. And while they may be thin now, they've got 2 more scholarship backs coming in June. So overall, I feel like this group's pretty strong. I'm just curious to see who comes up with that 3rd spot, whether it's Hatcher, Hatton, or Jake Reichel, or even a freshman like a Corday Glass.
I'm actually really excited to see a little Hatton in there, just because he's been buried, but he's been too big to be a receiver. So then
he's one hell of an athlete too.
He's an athlete, exactly.
He's a good basketball player. He's always at Dixon. He's a hooper. He's a good athlete.
Yeah, I watched his first carry, the first time I'd seen him carry the ball today, and he looked like a running back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good to know. And then how's Cornell Hatcher looking? Davis,
his legs are massive.
Massive, yeah.
He's got big legs. He's
looked really good. I mean, most of his runs are just in the scrimmage, which makes it a little harder because he's getting hit, but he's looking really good. Like, he's progressed from, not much playing time last year, if any, but he's looking good.
Yeah, I think it was that rainy scrimmage I brought the kids to. He probably got, I don't know, Jake, what, 20 carries?
Was that this year or last year?
No, it was this year.
This year.
Yeah, he had 13 for 52 and a touchdown.
Yeah.
Oh, remember that off the top of your head. I love you, Jake. I love you.
I don't know social security number, and Jake can remember.
Yeah, exactly.
Here, I'll check real fast. I'll check.
Hey, Jake, can you tell me what Powerball numbers I should take?
Yeah, right. He looked great in that scrimmage though. While Jake's looking that up, because there was a lot of after contact yards.
Okay.
Yeah. And then
I know he's thick.
I know he also scored a touchdown in Saturday's scrimmage as well.
Okay. Yeah, because we weren't allowed it Saturday. The past 2 Saturdays we've been not blackballed. They just no media. They like to throw some things in without the media seeing. Okay, so I guess the big question mark in the lodge anyway is offensive line. There's been quite a few injuries of guys that we expect to be starters. So they've been either limited or not participating this spring. Coach Cavs knew, although he knows what he's forgotten more than anybody will. But where is this O-line right now? Are you worried, Jake? Are you cautiously optimistic, or you're like, it's fine?
I think as of now, they have a lot of work to do. Obviously, it's tough to tell in my mind, after today's practice, you would arguably 7 of their top 9 guys out. I mean, really only Josiah Timoteu and Nathan Elu and Xander Esty were really only the 3 guys who practiced today that I really see being on that 2 deep. So it's tough to tell. There was a lot of mixing up. I mean, we had 2 redshirt freshmen on the first team offensive line, and Hawkes and Jaden Tuya, which it's valuable experience for them, which you can view as a good thing. But at the same time, if you got guys like Van Wells, Jacob Strand, Tyler Morano, Tyler Volton, real impact guys that could be, using these reps to kind of adjust to the slight changes that Coach Cav has brought over, but they just aren't able to because they aren't cleared yet. So that's why I think the summer and fall camp as well are going to be huge up front. And I think that's more where we're going to learn a lot. I mean, this morning I was kind of going through just getting my post-spring depth chart ready to go. And the offensive line is just a huge question mark.
Yeah.
Because we haven't seen any of these guys. It's tough to, put them where. So it'll be it's tough to tell right now. And I think fans going to the spring game on Saturday, if you see the offensive line struggle, I wouldn't be terribly worried just because not a lot of these guys are going to be playing. So and it remains to be seen how much those guys that are on the 2 deep on the 2 deep are going to practice.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's easy to hit the panic button too, like in this new world college football. It's like, oh, we got a transfer portal and stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of development that's going to happen in fall. I mean, the offensive line is like, I don't know anything about it. I know like a tiny bit just from being around the game, but it's a nuanced position. All 5 of them, especially center. So
just a quick baseball update. Into the first, it's Beavs 1, UCLA 0. They did have some runners on base, but Oregon State got out of that jam. So, just want to give a quick update.
What was the score?
1-0. Heading to the top of 2.
Baby.
Yeah, O-line, it does concern me, but a lot of that too is it's going to be centered around what those injuries and how those guys that are injured and have been out, how they come back. I know they're being cautious and trying to keep some guys back. I know some of the guys really want to get in there and start mixing it up, and the coaches and trainers are keeping them a little, putting them a little slower back just because you don't want a re-injury. But that is, like Jake said, the big giant question mark. Okay, we're going to take a quick break just so I can add for the podcast side. Again, if you're not a member of BeaverBlitz.com, now's the time to join. You'll get to read all the great content. Practice reports are in the lodge, as well as official visits that will be starting up here very shortly. So class of 2026 is starting to take shape. So not only that, the transfer portal opens tomorrow. Again, the spring opening. So it'll be interesting to see. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but just interesting to see if Oregon State, loses anyone, if anybody jumps in, if they add anyone. But that'll be something to watch as well. So make sure to check out BeaverBlitz.com. We've been around since 2002. It is your destination for all things Oregon State athletics. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back to the damn podcast. We just got done with a really big deep dive of the offense, of what we've learned from spring ball. Now it's time for the defense, and a little different here because maybe they didn't lose as many coaches, but the coach they lost in Keith Hayward, the defensive coordinator, was a pretty big one, but then he's replaced by former DC head coach Trent Bray. How Jake, tell me how this defense looks different, maybe, than it did a year ago.
Yeah, I mean, it looks a lot more like a Trent Bray defense. They're flying around more. They're bringing more of an energy to practice. I feel like Coach Bray, as kind of a coach and a leader, is a lot more emotional, and he kind of gets the players going a little bit more, whereas Coach Hayward, nothing wrong with it. It's more of a quieter, reserved guy, and I think you've kind of seen the way the defense carry themselves kind of resemble that change. I feel like with Bray, they've been a lot more energetic, and overall, I think what I've seen from this defense has been very promising. Last year forced a lot of inexperienced guys to get depth, which at the time, or forced a lot of inexperienced guys to get playing time, which at the time was kind of a iffy thing. But if you look at it now, that's created a whole lot of depth. And I think this defense looks a lot stronger. They're a lot deeper, and it looks more like the Trent Bray defenses that we've grown accustomed to over the past couple seasons.
Davis, energy. I know this is your first spring. What have you seen energy-wise from the defense?
It's high all the time. Like today, there was a tip pass intercepted, and everyone's going crazy, and DBs are flying around at all times. And every play, if there's a drop ball, fumble, they're all on it, and they all run to it. They're all going the other way with it, and then Trent, Bray's out there. He's running around yelling at people and keeping the energy high. It's
and they cannot like be beat out by their 40-year-old coach.
No,
it can't happen. Although Trent Bray runs around like he's still could play. Ty, what have you seen from the defense as a whole?
I mean, just kind of echoing what Davis and Jake said. It's definitely the excitement level, and just people. It looks like the defense being engaged, like on the sidelines or on the field. There seems to be more like active teaching going on. It's exciting. Yeah, I mean, we love to use the word swagger in Beaver Nation, because we harken back to some of those great Riley or Erickson defenses or Smith defenses, and I think you're starting to see more of that culture again, which is really cool.
See any pat downs this year?
No pat down. No pat downs.
Jake and Davis have no idea what the pat downs are. But Ty, you got me. You
The three of us on the sideline will celebrate with pat downs. Yeah.
Yes. The pat downs that was a 2000 thing for you young bucks there. Swashbuckling. They're swagger, swashbuckling. I will echo what Davis said, because the couple practices I've been to, there has been a concerted effort in any ball that like comes loose, it hits the ground, is tipped. It is a swarm to the ball. And it doesn't matter if you're on the complete opposite side of the field. Bray expects everyone, all 11, to be running for the ball. So it does have some excitement there. Okay, so just like the O-line, fans have concerns about the D-line. Are we going to see more of a pass rush this year, Jake? Do you think they get? Yeah.
I mean, again, it's tough to gauge because the O-line's really not healthy, and we don't know. None of these guys have played at Oregon State, so it's tough to tell. But the defensive line looks improved. I think Tavita Pomea and JoJo Johnson are two guys in particular that have really taken a step forward. I mean, Tavita was a guy who was kind of a rotational player last season, and he's dropped just about 20 pounds from last season, and he's been the consistent guy that's been rocking with the first team alongside Thomas Collins. And I think getting Taiji Hill back will potentially be pretty big for depth purposes, as well getting Nick Norris and Tajay Mullix as well, the Western Carolina transfer. I think getting those guys back will just give the team even more depth, and I think we'll be at the point where we aren't going to have to switch an offensive lineman and a tight end to the defense side of the ball.
Yeah, so that's just a reminder. I think it's important to go back and think back. I mean, just 6 months ago, where this team was in those injuries. Do you guys? I mean, Davis wasn't here yet, but there was a point last year when our two deep that we had at the start of the season, 17 out of the 22 had missed a game. I mean, that's insane that many guys had at least missed one game. crazy. So I've never seen in my 20 years of covering Oregon State football, I've never seen that injury bug hit that bad, and that I mean, no team can weather that kind of a hit to their death like that. Linebackers, one that people keep talking about as well. I mean, yes, Oregon State lost their 2 inside linebackers to the transfer portal. What are your thoughts going there? You have Rajon Davis, Melvin Jordan, or not Melvin Jordan.
Dexter Foster.
Dexter Foster. Thank you. Senior moment, guys. Senior moment. Give me a rundown on those 2 guys and the rest of the linebackers in general.
I mean, it's pretty clear at this point that Foster's kind of established himself as that top guy. He's a guy who really came out of nowhere last season, and he was one of Oregon State's better defensive players towards the end of the 2024 season. And what he's done in the weight room, combined with another season, in the positional coach rooms with Trent Bray, has just paid a lot of dividends, and he's taken a big step forward. And I think he's going to turn a lot of heads this season. That second spot, it's been looking like more of a battle between Rajon Davis and a guy who's fought through a lot of adversity, but he's back, is Micaiah Tongue. And awesome. What we saw from him in that
Kai is giving fist bumps right now for those of you who are not watching.
I mean, what we saw from him in that very small sample in 2023 was very impressive. And I think with a full season of him, he could really surprise some people. And then having a guy who's a proven talented kid in Rajon Davis just adds to the overall depth of this room. And I think it's a room that's going to take a step forward as well, which I think is going to be a common theme in this defensive room.
So what I noticed from Dexter Foster, the first 2 practices I attended, is, and this is given that he's gone from, freshman, and now he's another year in the system. But I saw a young man that has taken the next step too as a leader, and really kind of embracing that role as being a vocal leader on the field. Have you guys seen that continue?
For sure.
I think that room is going to be fun to watch. And like Ty is excited about seeing Micaiah. I mean, talk about a story there. That's one. We need to get Micaiah Tongue on the podcast.
Yeah.
I think, that story is just huge with what he's.
I love the athleticism that we have. Now, will that translate into those like iconic middle linebackers that Trent Bray defense, where the defense is funneled in and they're tackling machines? I don't know. That's the question yet to be answered. But I love the athleticism there, and I love the depth.
Yeah, I agree. How about outside backer, Davis? What have you seen from that room?
Shamar has stood out to me a lot.
Shamar Michael?
Yeah, he's been a big hassle for the quarterbacks. He's been out there. He's been, I think, running with the 2s, but he's switching to 1s and 2s. But he's really put pressure on the quarterbacks. Almost every play is out there.
Okay, good. And then, you got kind of edge rush, outside linebacker with Nico Taylor back. Oh, Jake's back.
Man, what a benefit, though, like that Nico got another chance. I mean, I just really feel like that puts him in a position to build off of a 1-year starter to really maybe give him a chance at the next level.
Because Ty, didn't you think he was just starting to kind of find his groove toward the end of last season? Yeah,
absolutely.
He was one we had on the podcast last year. Such a fun interview, and
he's great kid. Yeah.
Jake, do you have any outside linebackers? Davis mentioned Shamar Michael as being one that's really kind of popped it with him. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think the group as a whole is pretty deep. I think I know the staff's pretty high on Kai Walleen as well, the transfer from Nebraska. He's a guy who I think is going to, in a pretty deep room, I think he's a guy that's going to kind of emerge and see a good amount of playing time. But, I mean, this is a group that it's another one, kind of like that offensive line. It's a group where it's going to be a struggle to make that defensive depth chart. Because you got guys like Nico Taylor, as the Beavers just take a 2-0 lead in the top of the second. You got Nico, Shamar, Sakai Saez, Olu, Takari, Andy Walker Harris. I mean, those are all guys that can come out and play a lot of football for you. And I think you got a pretty clear number one in Nico Taylor. But outside of that, I mean, it's going to be a bloodbath for those 6-7 other guys to get playing time. And, maybe it's a spot where we see a portal departure just due to the depth. But really, I think this is arguably the deepest position on the team is outside back.
I mean, you brought up something. I mean, I don't know how I could forget Takari Hickle because that was like your number one guy, your dude, Jake, back before you got injured.
If he stays healthy, he's going to turn.
Watch the film. I mean, he's.
But Olu, I forgot. I mean, there's a lot of names. I mean, Zakaya. There's some names there that Zakaya flashed a few times last year. There's some guys there that if they take that next step, could be exciting.
Jake, I know we got to be careful with injuries, what we say, but is everything as far as you can say and know on track with Takari?
Yeah, he'll be back in
the fall.
He'll be back in August. Yeah,
nice.
Takari hurt spring ball of last year, and it was he's not out of his time frame.
Yeah,
let's put it that way.
That injury was about a year,
so.
But he should be returning early summer. I mean,
he's been going through drills.
He goes through drills.
He's dressed. Just hasn't gone live, which is expected at this point. I think they're being cautious with him because they know he's a talented kid, and they know he can really help him out, and they don't want to. Didn't want to push him back.
Olu, I think he had shoulder surgery.
That would be my assumption. Same with Sakaya.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, because Olu flat out said he was playing with a torn labrum last season. So, lots. We have a question in the comments. Well, first, Keith says, let's go Beavs. Absolutely. And Dobby says, what about Kelsey Howard? Still, I mean, he's battling depth, really. Right now,
I wouldn't count on him being a contributor this year.
He was. I mean,
when did he have his surgery? When did he go down?
It was late.
That was fall.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fall camp.
He was putting together a good fall camp.
Yeah, so he's still got several months before he can even go live with that. So, I can't keep track of all those injuries last year. There were a lot. Okay, and then DBs. There, the most recent portal announcement was Jack Conne. I know fans loved him. He was a delight. In fact, I even got my kid Jack, his mom. He was selling his NIL shirts that said "Try not to suck." Yeah, love mom. Love those shirts. Can't get Jack to wear. I bought it for him for Christmas. I thought he kind of rolls his eyes at me. But Jack Conne did portal. Safety's a pretty deep room though. I just think he was fighting an uphill battle for playing time.
I think he deserves a chance to go play a lot of football somewhere. And I think that with the emergence of Patterson, I think it sucks to lose like a senior who very likely could have been a captain. But yeah. I mean, Jake knows the depth of that room better than I do. So.
Yeah, I mean, if the outside linebacker room is not the deepest on this defense, I think it's a secondary. Even with the guys they have out right now, no Kobe Singleton, no Noble Thomas. I still think it's a very deep group that's been very impressive. I think the cornerback spot, you've got guys that can you've got multiple guys that can play. I think Trey Glasper is a guy, a true freshman who's really turned some heads. And then the safety room is really deep. You've got 4 legitimate guys, and I know staff was high on Harlem Howard as well before he went down last season, but he's just got back and went full goal today. So that's another guy in that room. A guy that's really been impressive has been Tyrese.
Tyrese, he's been like a ball hawk.
Yeah,
a ball hawk, and they've been kind of shifting him around. He started his career at Oregon State at corner. Switched to safety last season, kind of took that starting role from Conne along with Jaheim Patterson towards the end of last season. And then even this spring, we've seen him work with Skylar at safety, then at times bump down to nickel. And then today, for the first time, we saw him bump over to cornerback as well. So he's a guy that has the flexibility to play really every spot in the secondary, and they're going to get him on the field one way or the other, whether that's at safety, at nickel, at corner. And I think I think Oregon State's best defense has Jaheim Patterson, Skylar Thomas, and Tyrese Ivey all on the field at the same time.
And I love the versatility.
Yeah. And like
it's not just him either. I mean, you got guys like Amarian York, who's cross-training. I mean, we've seen Cy rep corner, safety, nickel as well. And we saw a lot of that with Trent prior to last season as defensive coordinator. Now with him taking back over, we're seeing a lot more of that cross-training action, which I think is a great thing because it helps build depth where you aren't forced to throw a younger guy in necessarily like Oregon State was last year. Now let's say Exodus Ayers goes down or something. Oregon State can throw Tyrese over from safety to corner, or if Jaheim gets hurt, you can bump Tyrese from nickel to safety. It's the flexibility helps a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that you just said like that defense, that lineup that you just mentioned, and like the first thing I thought was and then you have Cy, and Marion York sitting on the sidelines, and those guys have had really a great spring. I mean,
the secondary has been, in my opinion, the best position group this spring. It's in the spring and the fall, there's usually more throwing of the ball just because you aren't going live, and it's tough to gauge the run game as much. But what I've seen from the secondary has been very impressive.
And like you said, they're so deep. I mean, then you start thinking, well, then Kobe Singleton has been out, so you get him back in the mix. And when you're talking about Amarian York and Tyrese Ivey and Jaheim Patterson, and then you throw Cy out there, I was like, so there's a lot of guys.
And don't count out Trey Glasper as well.
Yeah, he's been impressive.
He's a guy. I mean, if you look at it, the last 2 years with Jermod McCoy and Exodus Ayers, Oregon State's had two legitimate good cornerbacks. I mean, Jermod McCoy is a guy two legitimate true freshman cornerbacks. Jermod's a guy who's now, before he tore his ACL, was going to be the number one cornerback in this upcoming draft class. I think Exodus Ayers has an NFL future as well. Is Trey Glasper the next one? I mean, from what we've seen, he's been very impressive, and he has the best chance of any true freshman to get on the field this season.
What's his measurables? He's not as long as Exodus, is he?
No, he's a little bit shorter. I want to say he's 6'1", $175. I can check that.
Yeah. Only 6'1". Like that's still a long corner. Yeah.
He's down as not loading for me.
I got it says he's 6 foot 171 on the roster.
And that's so he's probably 5'11" is what I'm going with for in real life. But 6 foot football, 6 foot in cleats. He's 6 foot in cleats.
Talking about guys like TJ Crandall and Jaleel Tucker and Jay Vickers as well. All three of those guys have been with the ones as well. So this is a group that looks a lot deeper, and I know Coach Chance is very happy with this group, as is Coach Coop, and I think the expectations for this room is sky high. I think it's on par with that 22. I think the expectations are on par with that 22 defensive secondary.
Well, and how much do you guys love Skylar Thomas? I think he's really come out of his shell, at least with the media this year. He sounds like a coach when he talks to us.
I think he's going to be a hell of a football coach one day.
And he's also been playing great. I mean,
he's been playing great.
Go
ahead.
No, my hope is that he plays himself a chance to continue his career because he was a good football player on a bad defensive team. He was one of the better football players on a bad defensive team last year. And now I'm like, I think he's elevated his game. He also has support staff around him, Yeah. So that's the hope anyways. Yeah.
He's a good one. And another thing that we've added to Blitz is Spencer Newell has been doing some backstory. We call it backstory, where he sits down with some of our athletes. And so last week he interviews Skylar Thomas. So it's a really good read if you haven't read it yet, about Skylar and just how his dad would take him didn't have a gym. So dad would take him and put him through the workouts. And it's a good reminder. I sometimes say I need a gym and I need to pay.
And we got his brother.
And we got his brother coming too.
His brother looks like a dude. Yeah.
Brother's been trained by dad and Skylar. So there's some extra toughness maybe there. Okay, so we are like cruising here. We're down to 10 minutes, and so we're not going to get to a ton of the questions, but I do want I have some quick hits for you guys now, kind of overall picture, and I know it's spring. I think this is best for Jake, this one. What is different this spring than you've seen the past two springs?
Past two springs is tough, but just comparing last spring to this spring, I think the depth the depth is a lot higher quality as UCLA. Oh, never mind. Great catch to save a home run. Sorry. The depth is a lot stronger. I think, last year there were rooms where it's like, how many Power 4, Power 5 quality guys do you have? Whereas this year it's every room has a handful of quality Power Conference guys. I think Beaver's going to be a lot more comfortable throwing guys in there if people go down, which it happened last year and the results were mixed. But this year, I think they're going to be a lot more better if that has to happen. And just that depth and then the energy and enthusiasm around the program. I think some of the hires Coach Braze has made, Coach Pick and, Coach Heck are two of the louder guys who aren't afraid to, not getting guys' faces, but, get loud and, show their emotions on the field, which I think is a good thing.
So. Yeah. So how you've been able to observe that. That is probably one of the toughest things when you're actually building a staff and then replacing staff is finding guys that fit the culture, fit with the other coaches, and then fit with the whole culture of the team. Are all these new coaches fitting in from what you're seeing?
I mean, I can tell you firsthand, I think all the coaches are fitting in very well. Being around them at practice and stuff, I think they're fitting in very well. Coach Heck and Coach McCann are gelling really well with the rest of the staff. Coach Heck and Coach Bray have been very tight for a while. And then, Coach Pick's a guy who's really gelled with that room, the running back room. They've all just raved about him. And then, Coach Kyrie Marshall was already the de facto edge coach last year. So that's not really a huge change. And then, Coach Cav's a guy who's been with a lot of these guys. And then even extending from the on the field guys to the, not the 10 guys, but you got Coach Langsdorf, Coach Icky, Coach Kreiner, all guys who have gotten to know Coach Bray either beforehand or now very well. And it's a very tight-knit community of coaches. And, they all spend a lot of time with each other. And I think that's something that isn't really a common thing at a whole lot of schools. So I think that's kind of speaks to the culture that Trent Bray has started to build here at Oregon State.
Yes. We had a comment here from Keith, super fan Keith. Depth is so much better. We went from feeling bad that we had so many guys out and playing out of position to feeling bad that some of the players are going to be left out of the lineup.
I mean, first of all, Keith is the man, and I need to go introduce myself next time I see him, but we're not to fall yet. So
yeah.
I hope that's what happens.
Okay, so I'm going to ask each of you guys this. We'll start with Davis. What has stood out to you this spring? It can be anything.
Like Jake said, Trey Glasper.
Okay.
But, yeah, just the whole defensive backs, they look really good. They making plays all over the place, like tip balls, they're catching those. Like that Tyrese, he made a great interception. Couldn't be there, but just DBs as a whole, they look like that 2022 team. Very good. But yeah, Trey Glasper, he's looked like a lockdown corner.
Okay. Good to hear. Ty, what has stood out to you?
The potential of the passing game.
Okay.
I mean, if I was to summarize it, there's a lot of either like, it's so close to you're like, oh, yes. You know what I mean?
I wish if you're not watching this live or watching on YouTube and you're listening to this on the podcast, you have to see Ty's face. He is an actor by trade and he's making some good.
I think that I'm going to look forward to continue watching the adjustment of the not only the downfield passing game, but the passing game in general. I think we're going to see a really different offense this year. That's the hope. Anyways.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that is the hope. Jake, what has stood out to you?
I think the passing game as a whole, it hasn't hit it yet, but I think the potential is a lot higher. I think what we've seen from the depth in that receiver room paired with the arm talent of Malik Murphy, it's hard not to get excited about.
Yeah.
You got guys who we know what they can do in Trent Walker. He's a consistent guy. He can go out and get you 8 for 80, 8 for 90 every game. We got Taz Reddick, who I think is just tapping into that potential. He's going to be a guy who takes a huge step forward. And I like the ability for Oregon State to push the ball downfield next season with guys like Darius Clemens. I think David Wells is a guy that Pat McCann's very high on. I think you're going to see him get those, those deep balls that we saw him get last year against Idaho State. And then Zach Card, if he can put it all together, he's got the speed. It's setting up to be a really good pass game.
And the young guys too. I'm going to butcher his last name. Freeoff and Durant. Like those guys are pushing for touches.
Yeah. The thing that stood out to me is just the energy from the whole team. I mean, we talked about it from a defensive side, but the entire crew has a different level of energy that I haven't seen in years. And I have maybe even ever. Riley had some years where they had some energy, ran to drills, really vocal. But yeah, like Ty said, there's some swagger with this group. There's some yelling, there's some encouragement, whether it's encouragement from the other side of the ball or just in general. It's been fun. There's an energy that's there. Flip side, we'll start with Jake on this. What area are you looking to see more improvement? And this we might have the same answer across the board.
Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty. I'm going to separate myself and not go O-line, but I'm going to go the kicking game.
Okay, fair.
That would be my 1A, 1B. Yeah.
Yeah. It's Caleb Ojeda looks like the front runner. He's a junior college transfer, redshirt last year. But outside of that, it's looked pretty disastrous.
Oh, shoot.
It's a problem when your second kicker can't even get the ball to the goal line on a 43-yard kick.
Snap.
You've seen so much more than I have. I've seen it is what it is. I mean, I think Oregon State with Sappington and what we saw from Everett last season, we've had two pretty good kickers.
I think Blodgett Beaver in the lodge had asked the question about the kicking situation.
Yeah.
So there's a damn question answered right there.
I think Ojeda's got the potential. I mean, it's tough to gauge him because we haven't seen him in a game. Oregon State has zero collegiate field goal attempts taken. So
did they open it up and have college tryouts? I
think you might look portal. I think there's going to be people in that room right now that aren't going to be there in a week. That's just kind of my opinion.
Jake says to that, Chris.
You heard it here, folks.
It's just my opinion.
You guys heard it here.
I think what we've seen has not been good. I think they're going to bring someone in to compete with Caleb Ojeda. He hasn't been terrible. I mean, he's been solid. He's struggled from deep at times, but he's hit 43 and 48 yarders. But it's more about getting that consistency down. And, nowadays in the portal, there's kickers available. So I think that along with offensive line are my big question marks. And, special teams is what wins or lose you, is what can win or lose your games. So confident long snapper, confident punter, kicker is just the one spot where we need to see something.
Okay, Davis?
I'd say O-line, but but it is hard. It's just injuries.
Yeah.
Jake, the punters look good, but the field goals, kicking, I would have to agree. Yeah, I've watched a lot. It's been pretty tough.
I'm going to O-line. How about you, Ty?
The portal.
Okay.
The portal, because I think Keith smartly brought up that we are maybe more comfortable than we're used to being in position groups, but that can change so quickly.
Yeah.
You can lose a couple of guys in a room and then
be devastated.
Yeah. And I think the staff has done a great job recruiting and developing players, and so it's just like they're going to be sought after. And our NIL is great, but I mean, there's some oil money out there. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And the roster does need to be cut down to 105, and they're at 116 right now. So there will be guys leave. It's a guy, and it's going to be. I don't know this for a fact, but I'd assume it's going to be guys that the coaching staff asked to leave at some spots, which we saw that last season. There were guys, guys like Quincy Wright, Joe Swen, John Miller, guys who weren't necessarily going to play. And they told them that, and they transferred out. I think this year you're going to see a lot of that just because they're going to have to cut the roster down to 115. So it'll be interesting. Or excuse me, they have cut down to 105. So they're 11 over at the moment after Conne's transfer. So
that's always a reminder too when you see guys leaving. I know sometimes in the lodge it becomes skies falling and what are these coaches doing? All these guys are leaving. Sometimes it's because they're not going to play.
Yeah, there's going to be scholarship guys go.
Yeah, but potentially there's some openings if enough leave. A couple more questions because I went through the questions and we've answered a bunch of them just throughout this podcast. So if you're in the lodge and ask a question, we've gone over players, we've gone over portal players, a ton of info, and there's been a couple kicking questions, which I think we had our answer to that. Okay, here's a couple. What's your go-to snack at Reeser? I don't really snack at Reeser. I actually got better this year because I didn't snack. I used to bring Mike and Ike's and snack on that, and then I've actually tried to be really good on my eating healthy, so I don't really snack at Reeser anymore.
I mean, before I started, it was Coors Light. I don't know if that counts. I don't know.
Whatever is not $1 million. That's what that is.
Yeah, exactly.
My kids, once I took a trip to Beaver Street, which is awesome. And after I got all the kids and the girlfriend's kids' food, I was like, oh my God.
You're like, I file for bankruptcy now.
Yeah, I need to refinance my house, dude.
Davis, you don't do snacks probably.
I think I only bought 2 things, and it was pizza and water.
Okay.
No, water.
Water, healthy snack. See, press box. Just wait for the press box. I think they did give us vouchers one year, and then last year we had box lunches. So
the vouchers are better almost.
Yeah, but then you stick with me, like Jake can attest, and I can take you around to some tailgates before the game.
Yeah.
Better snacks before the game. So, and then Beavs. I think they meant Beavs defense, but which home and away games are you most excited for this year? Pulled up the schedule if you guys needed it.
I feel like for home games because it's going to be a former Pac-12 school coming to town.
Who did you say, Cal?
Yeah. And they just lost. Not that we want to beat them on an error, but they just lost Jay Knott and they're breaking in a new quarterback.
And they lost their tight end too.
Yeah. I mean, man, that's one. Oh, I hope we get.
Yeah, I think that's a huge one.
Yeah. I think that going to Texas Tech could potentially really suck.
Yeah.
Texas Tech's gonna be good. They're gonna be a top 25 team this year.
And it's a historically tough place to play too.
I think going to App State would be fun.
Yeah,
that's what I was going to say.
That's a beautiful little stadium.
It's the one I want to go to next year.
Yeah.
Davis, you got any?
Well, not last year, but the year before I went down to Pullman, and that was cool. So I'm excited to. I don't know if I'll go this year, but I
have never been to Pullman, you guys.
Really? Yeah. I went to watch Brandon play forever ago, but it looks completely different now.
Oh, so Nick Volker in the chat said all 4 Cal running backs have hit the portal.
Hope they don't come after Hank again.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that. That would have to be a big bag, and I think we would compete.
I wouldn't be shocked if RNA's really better off than Cal's is.
Cal. Well, I heard somewhere Cal was the donors were holding out money until they got their guy to be the
Ron Rivera.
Yeah, Ron Rivera to be in charge of all football decisions, and I don't know. And then this is totally, and we are totally over time now. But have you guys followed the Nico in Tennessee? And now it's here he was demanding $4 million, and now he's barely getting $1 million.
Something with those poly quarterback dads are just between.
Is it dad?
It's the same thing as TJ's dad.
Yeah,
don't have the kid's best interest in heart.
I know he was a playoff quarterback, but how was he?
Yeah, but so that's even that part of the story today. He
had 8 touchdowns in SEC games, and 4 of those was against Vanderbilt, if I'm remembering right.
Yeah, and before the CFP game, apparently his people tried to get more money because they said he got into the CFP and he needed more money. Trying to renegotiate the NIL mid-week.
I can understand negotiating day one for incentives.
Yes, absolutely.
Like having the wherewithal to be like, hey, if I was a big part of taking us to this place that makes this school a lot of money or makes this fan base a lot of money, I can see like negotiating that from the jump. But like, that's just such an icky feeling of like,
negotiate.
Last season, he played 5 games against top 25 teams, and in those games, he had 4 touchdown passes and 3 interceptions in 5 games.
That sounds like our passing game.
Yeah. I mean, I think he was at $2 million at Tennessee, and then they won at 4.
He was at 2.5.
2.5. Okay.
Allegedly.
Yeah, this is all, again, because nothing's transparent.
And now, according to a rival site, teams are holding out because he has no leverage right now, and they're trying to get him to go below $1 million.
Yeah,
so
it's kind of like Texas State in the new Pac-12. Right?
Yes, yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah, they're like, really? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's wild to watch. So anyway, thank you guys for joining us. I'm going to let you go. Jake Hedberg, Ty Boyce, Davis Doan. I'm Angie Machado, and we'll be back.
Truly, baby.
We'll be back next week or next time for a damn podcast.